Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. You're going to be so glad that you're here. We are with three incredible women that you are going to want to meet and want to know and want to follow. And then you're going to want to buy their book. And then you're going to want to watch their travels and go where they go and do the things and read the blogs. And I'm so excited that they agreed to be on the show because this is just going to be so much fun. Karen, and Rebecca. And Karen Smith has an extra last name,
Racicot,
which is such a cool name, by the way. Smith to Racicot.
Well, I went from Wilson to Smith, and so Racicot is harder to pronounce and harder to spell, so I stuck with Smith.
Yeah, but I love it though. I mean, when I was dating way back when, like in high school, I don't know, whatever. I didn't want to ever date anybody who had a last name I didn't like. I had a couple of rules for dating. One is I wouldn't date anybody under 6 foot tall because my 5 foot nothing mom married a short man, and I wanted to give my kids a shot at some height if I ever had kids. And he had to be good looking, because I wanted my wedding pictures to look good, and he had to have a good last name. So along came my husband, and there you go. Check, check, check. Yeah, not shallow at all. I'm sure that was the same list everybody has for husband material. Yes. Yeah. And then Rebecca.
Yes.
LaChance.
Yes.
Oh, love that name. Sorrel is French. Langlois is my maiden name. So
wow.
French. Love it. Love it. Yes. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's so good to see you. So good you're here. I love that you have your new book in the background, Widows Among Us. I love the cover, by the way. It is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And yeah, it looks so good. And I just know you guys are going to kill it. I'm excited for you. And Karen Justice.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And you are the lady in yellow. I think everything I've watched with you, you have yellow. Is yellow your favorite color?
It tends to be, yes. I probably have a majority of yellow and bronze and orange in my closet. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I love it on you. It looks great. And with your background and everything, you look great. So we're going to dive in because this is, we are all widows here.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all have a story. And I think the things that are going to be really interesting to talk about today is, first of all, we'll tell your stories, but then talk about like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like people don't know about grief. They don't know what to do. Widows don't know what next step to take, all the stuff. So I'm excited to talk about all that, but I'd love to start with just tell your story, how you got to where you are today. So Rebecca, do you want to start?
I will start. I am the youngest widow in terms of the years that I've been a widow. My husband died in March of 2020. He had a heart attack, but he refused to go to the hospital because he was afraid that he would catch COVID in the hospital. And so, of course, that led to very precipitous decline and a misadventure, and he, of course, passed away. So my story is that when he passed away, I had been a nurse for 30 years, and I was like, you have to go to the hospital. No, he wouldn't go. And so I knew exactly everything that was happening, and I knew what his condition was, and I knew what the outcome was going to be. And I have very high standards of what I expect in healthcare. And when those standards weren't met, I was livid, just livid. And yeah. But I am also neurodivergent, so that in my grief process, it required me to just be by myself. I couldn't expend the energy and the brain calories with other people, which, and the Karens will tell you this, that they interpreted that to mean that I was having a very difficult time in my grief process. I did go through what was a dark night of the soul for me, but that had threw me back into where I had to do a reevaluation of my growing up years and how that led me to be who I am. And then I had to learn how to teach people about my way of coping was not as aberrant as they thought that it was. And so, they stepped in and they were going to help me. And, and as I frequently tell them, they were working under incomplete data. And
Miss Scientist here.
It worked out well.
yeah, yeah. But, they stepped in and we did develop a way, to travel and be and grow. And I will have to say, one of the things that worked for me, especially in working with these other two ladies to write the book, was if you say to someone, I have a neurodivergent brain, they don't know what that really means and how the brain responds. So I literally did a PowerPoint presentation for them. I made a whiteboard and I was like, this is what my brain does. This is what this does. This is how it responds. This is what I need to do, sort of thing. And one of the things that I do is that I do have to move a lot to get rid of that energy. And so sometimes those movements are misinterpreted. Other people are like, oh, she's just not paying attention. No, that's not, I'm paying attention, but I have to move while I'm paying attention, sort of thing. So to be able to do that and to share that has opened up a lot for other people to understand some of the neurodivergence and how that person, me especially, will have a different method of moving through the grief process.
That's so interesting. I love that. I'm writing a book on grief right now, and I'm writing that down because it's interesting how different people and how their minds work and their backgrounds, everything else, everything comes into play. But I never thought about that our minds work so differently, and that's why grief can look so different to different people. And anyway, well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm so sorry about your husband.
Thank you.
Not an easy time, my word, in 2020. Holy cow, that just had to be awful, I imagine.
Yep.
Karen Smith.
Yes. So I am the youngest in age, but I have lost my husband the longest. He died really at the age of 49. I was 47, of a heart attack immediately, no signs, on his way to work. It was April 12th, which is significant because we owned a tax and accounting business. So it was literally 3 days before the major tax deadline. So as you can imagine, that threw everything into upheaval. It was, I forget the exact quote, but there is a quote out there that says, life is lived forward, but recognized backwards, like you look back and you understand. And so part of as I grew, after the grief, and before I go too much further into the story, part of what I'd like to say is what makes our stories and our book, I feel, so interesting is that we are all three very, very different people. As Rebecca said about her, I am a person that grew up shy, am still in many, many ways shy, didn't like to go anywhere without my husband walking into the room first. I followed him to the conversations, I didn't do well engaging on my own. And I was okay with that. And him and I owned an accounting business, and he was the people person. He was the accountant. All I did was run the office, right? That's just, put things into place and make sure things ran smoothly. To me, not a big deal because it was so easy, right? And one of my admin people used to say when tax season started, we always know, a couple of weeks into tax season, the admin staff would get the, okay, ladies, it's time to have a chat, because they weren't following my flow chart exactly the way I wanted them to. And in order for so, but I was very shy. And after Sam's death, I going through the grief process and having a business, I realized that if I wanted the business to succeed, because I did continue it after Sam's death, I had to put myself out there. And so a large part of my grief process and my growth after Sam's death came from learning how to speak up and learning how to walk into a room and not like look for the furthest corner. I still walk into a room and pause, right? But I've learned to walk into a room with my shoulders back and my head up and not like, crouch and go to a corner like I used to. And I eventually became president of a local women's organization, which is where Karen and I met, and found a love of a microphone, which, when my presidency was over, it's like, no, I have to give up the microphone, which is such a different person than I used to be, right? And I realized that that person was always there. I just never let her speak up. I was in a comfort zone. I often say that, I had a very small comfort zone, and Sam's death pretty much catapulted me out of it, right? He used to try to gently push and pull and tug, but he catapulted me out of it with his death. And but my journey is very different from either Rebecca or Karen's, and it's different from any other widow, any other woman, really. We're telling the story of being a woman.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we go through, right? And how each of us went through it differently, mainly because of our personalities to begin with, but there's a lot of similarities in there as well.
Mhm.
And so, that's a big part of our story. And our friendship has grown and morphed throughout this process of writing the book. There's been tears, there's been laughter, there's been a lot of travel, there's been joking. Rebecca and I like quiet time. Karen likes energy, and we're like, just go somewhere else, leave us alone for a little bit, her and her yellow.
Let us drink our coffee
it's-
before we have to move.
Right, right. So it's
Go,
been
go.
exactly no. So it's been even that part of it as we formed our friendship throughout the writing of the book and learned more about each other. Like I would never, like Rebecca, like, oh yeah, she's being quiet, something must be wrong. Nope, she's just in her own mind thinking, oh, okay. And Karen has learned to say, okay, they're not mad at me that they're not talking to me. They just need some alone time, right? And I've learned to speak up for myself, which is hard for me. So it's been a journey in so many different ways.
It's so interesting to me. Like you said, that all of your journeys are different. Everybody's grief journey, I think, is different. Yeah, we tend to judge people's grief for whatever reason that we do. And just let people grieve. Let people grieve how they grieve, and it's okay. But anyway, thanks for sharing that. I think that we should all become friends because I like to go, Karen.
Oh,
And
good.
so yeah. So they can
good.
say,
You're
they
in,
can
you're
say, they can drink their coffee. We can be going, whatever it is. They can be sitting reading a book, and we can just go. Anyway, okay, Karen, you want to share your story?
Sure. I'm in the middle. I'm the shortest one, but I'm the middle on the loss of the husband. But my story is different because they both lost their husbands very suddenly. And my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2014. And fortunately, it was diagnosed because they're looking for something else, and it was caught early. So he had 3 years. We had 3 years together. So honestly, Kim, you start grieving the moment you hear that kind of a diagnosis. But it's one of those things you both deal with and suppress at the same time. The mind is an amazing tool. It really is. So, working through, I'm a planner. Besides being go, 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 I'm also much of a planner. So I immediately started, okay, what do I have to do? What do we have to do? What do I have to take care of? What am I going to look forward to? How am I going to manage, the kind of problem solving issues? And in many ways, sometimes because I'm a planner, maybe that was also a retreat from the grief. I could be planning instead of sobbing. So, we had 3 years. We had time to go through paperwork. We had time to do the things that we put into our checklist for preparing to be a widow. Some of that we had done because we moved so often. John was a soldier for 31 years, and the Army requires some of those preparation activities to be done. So we traveled, there were good weeks, bad weeks. He worked for, we lived in Maryland, and he worked for a company that's headquartered in California. So he was oftentimes in California. He was setting up a factory for them in Las Vegas. And so we spent a lot of time there. So we were on the road, we were home for treatments, we were going through different steps and stages. We owned a huge industrial building that we had converted into a residence. We had to get rid of that because there's no way I wanted a 13,000 square foot, over 100-year-old stone building next to the woods way out of town and to live in all by myself. So sold that, bought another place, and just went through the transition step by step. And so I have to mention that the condo I'm living in that I bought after John died was not expected in our plan, but I wanted to do something smaller so I could go, lock the door and leave. It's probably, I'm thinking, the 28th home I've lived in, and 29th, I believe, maybe. And I've moved 31 times because I moved into one house or two houses twice. So I'm used to change, and I've learned to deal with change. And I think that helped me deal with the fact that life was changing. It was just another change, a really drastic one, but just, it was another change. I knew how to
Wow.
manage it. I had the tools.
Yeah, yeah, good for you. A lot of people fear change. A lot of people say they hate change, right? I mean, I think you hear more of that than I embrace change. I like change. I mean, I don't know people that say that. You're the first one, I think, that I've heard say that. But I'm the same. Karen, we're like twin sisters, I think, because I like change too. Like, it's okay to change things up. And even when it's change you don't want, like we didn't want to lose our husbands,
Right.
but it's change that you need to embrace, or I felt like I needed to embrace no matter what, right?
Right.
So my story is I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he passed away 6 weeks after that. So, and I was 47 and he was 51. And yeah, it was a crazy time. Crazy. Like, I don't even know. But I agree, the day that you get that news, because pancreatic cancer is like the worst one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people just, it's
We were
not
very,
survivable.
very lucky. You know, the
Yeah.
diagnoses usually don't happen that fast, that early,
Right.
rather.
Right. No kidding. So that was good. But yeah, so and you don't know how much time, like you didn't know how much time either. There's that. But I think you do start grieving when you hear the news, because I mean, we all know we're going to die someday, but I sure didn't expect I didn't expect to be 47 and my husband die, right? You expect to be 97, maybe, or whatever your expectations are. So it's interesting. And so I had to get through my cancer stuff. I mean, it was just a mess and a half, but I ended up going to Haiti. And there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200,000 people. And so I went and worked in Haiti and figured out that for me, but I think for others as well, service is an incredible healer of grief. Because you kind of get outside yourself, and it lets you focus on other things, lets your brain rest, lets your heart rest, lets your stomach rest, right? And serving just changes your life's atmosphere. And so that's what really helped me. So people say dumb things, not necessarily on purpose. I mean, hopefully people don't say things they shouldn't on purpose, but do you guys have something you remember that just, holy cow, why did he say that? Why did she say that? That kind of hit you in a funny way after losing your husbands?
Well, I think the classic is, that someone will always say to you, well, call me if you need anything.
Right.
Never going to happen. It's never going to happen. First of all, I didn't know what I was going to need. And second of all, if you expect me to have the energy to pick up the telephone or to text you, that's not going to happen, because I didn't have that energy as well. Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we interviewed many other widows along the way, you know, incorporate their stories and their wisdom in the book. And we've heard stories about family members telling the new widow who she would be allowed to date.
Nice.
Yeah. Or elderly parents telling the new widow that she would be disowned if she married again. You know, and I'm like,
Wow.
where are these people's minds? What are they thinking? You know, and I think one of the classics is from Joyce Carol Oates in her book, talking about her husband passing away, and she was having work done in her house, and the workman was saying things to her like, "Well, you know, on the other hand, you know, this is a good time. You can do anything you want, and you know, hey, life is going to be good." And she's like, "You're an idiot."
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Karen
Well,
Smith, what about you?
well, definitely what Rebecca said as far as the, oh, let me know if you need something. The energy just isn't there. And I think one of the most surprising things is the friends that I'm no longer friends with,
Mhm.
that they were not there for me when I really needed them. And the friendship just faded away. I didn't have the energy to keep it up. And just, I have a lot of, like, it's interesting because most of the people, not all of them, but most of the people in my life today, I did not know before Sam died. Did not know Sam, did not know who I was before Sam died. There's a few that have stuck around, a few very close friends. One of them called me every day just to check in, say hi, and then it was every couple of days, and then it was once a week. She had me over for my birthday. This is my shout out to my bestie Joyce. And I don't know what I would have done without her because she was a lifeline at the time, right? And my other another good friend Ellen that just would check on me periodically. She lives further away, but just they were there for me. And a lot of friends, they didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. And I think that's one of the hardest things because you don't have to say anything astounding. How about a thought of you today? Thinking of you. How are you doing? I'm not doing well. Life sucks right now. Okay. So they don't want to hear that. So they don't want to ask the question. So don't ask the question. Just simply say, I thought of you today. I've been thinking of you. Would you like to go for a walk would you like me to come over and sit on the porch with you and have a glass of wine, a cup of coffee? They can sit in silence. They can sit and talk. They can let you, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's people that try to judge what you're doing or figure out what you're doing or want to tell you, oh, it's going to be okay. Well, maybe it is, but it's not right now. And I can't see that yet, right? There's a
Right.
period of time, like at the end of the day, we all know that we're going to get through whatever we're getting through. And we also know that we're going to be a different person on the other end. And if you don't know that, it's because you really haven't gone through anything traumatic yet, but you will find out. And one of the conversations I sometimes have with women that are still married, haven't lost their husband, and some of them have said to me, I don't know what I would ever do. I'd be petrified. And I'm like, you know what? That's exactly, and it's in the book. I used to say, I don't know how I would survive without Sam. I really didn't know how I would, but I did. And I'm okay. I'm different. And as a friend and or family member, the best you can do is just support them. Support what they're doing. A little gentle, hey, would you like to go for a walk today? Would you like to go to this? There's a book club down at the library. Would you like to just go and sit? You don't even have to read the book. Just sit and be around people. Maybe yes, maybe no, but at least offer,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's so true. I read years ago statistics about widows, and widows lose 80% of their friends.
Mhm.
80% of widows change churches if they are going to church, and they gain 15 pounds. And so when I read that, as a young widow, like shortly after I was widowed, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how does that work? I have these great friends. Like, what is that even going to mean? But the reality is, like you said, I'm in that same boat. Like the friends that I have today, I have some that I've been friends with since high school, right? But otherwise, my friends today are people I didn't know before my husband died.
Mhm.
And
But you're a different person, right?
it's true. It's true. A different person. And I think too, like a lot of our friends were couple friends,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
right? And so then you're invited to do a couple things, but when you're not a couple anymore, then you just don't get invited. Or that was my experience. I just
Mhm.
didn't get invited. And so, you know, it's okay. I mean, people can do whatever they want to do. And I've got wonderful friends, but it is, those statistics are harsh. They're
Mhm.
they're not really very nice. And if you're gonna say, you know, Rebecca, you brought up people saying, let me know if you need anything. And you're absolutely right. We're not going to reach out. So reach out, like Karen was saying, reach out, and you don't have to say much of anything. Although one little error maybe that was made, I'm going to call you on, Karen, is you said, you ready for this? She's pretty excited, I can tell. You said, even if you just come and sit in silence, whatever. Well, I don't think with Karen Justice that would work. So, I mean, just a guess.
The person coming might be
but
silent, but Karen would be talking.
Maybe not. But you know, if you brought food, I could be silent. Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
true. You know, as I said, I had a longer time to go through the grieving. So one of the things that people said to me was, "You are the strongest woman I know," and it was intended as a compliment. It was taken as a compliment, but I thought, you know, you really don't know. I am strong because I have to be strong. There is no other way to get through this except to be strong, or not for me anyway. To take all of the skills and capabilities that I had gotten through, all the other changes in my life, pull them all out of the basket, and you know, wear them to get through this. And back to you know, one, yes, I am a social creature. I'm the typical Myers-Briggs type indicator of being an extrovert, in that I get recharged when I'm with other people. So to be alone as a widow, which Rebecca needed, would have suffocated me. And you were talking, Kim, about not being invited to couples dinners and so forth. I think that was one of the things we mentioned in our book too, is if she was part of your dinner party, she and her husband were part of your dinner party, and she was part of the conversation, perhaps not like Karen, the other Karen, as in the quiet one behind Sam, but she was part of the conversation. Invite her. It's not like she's any dumber and she has less, fewer things to share. And she'd rather be included. That, don't think of her being a fifth wheel or a third wheel. Sometimes it's just nice to be part of the cart,
Yeah, so
to be
true.
there.
And by the way, we're not after the husbands,
Right.
No.
right?
No, that's right.
They can keep their husbands. That's
No,
all fine.
exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine was part of a dinner party. There were 4 couples, and one of the men had lost his wife. Well, my friend had lost her husband many years ago, but she was still included in this dinner party. And one of the men at the dinner party lost his wife. A few years later, they started dating, and now they're quite a couple. So it's not like you're after someone's husband, but romance does happen. So
Yeah. Romance. That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know about you guys. I suck at dating. I just said suck. That's probably not a great word to use. I stink at dating. Like I used to be really good at it. I know I was. Before I married my husband, I was good. I knew how to date, but I lost all those skills with him passing away. I've stayed in relationships way too long. I've gone on dates out of pity. I've gone on, stayed with somebody because something tragic happened in their life. And I can't break up with them now. I can't break up with them now. I've made so many mistakes dating that I'm at a very happy, comfortable point of going, I'm not gonna, like, I'm
Mhm.
happy alone. and which is a wonderful place to be, but it's also wonderful to be in relationship.
Yeah.
And, we have match.com, we have all these things. Oh my gosh, I can tell you stories. Okay, so I was a little naive. I'm sure you guys have dating stories, so get them ready. But I was a little naive. And my friend who's 20 years younger than I am said, you should try Tinder. And I said, isn't that a hookup thing? Like, isn't that what people do on there? And she said, oh, no, it's not just that. Like, just give it a try. And so I'm like, well, okay. Met a guy and we met out. Of course, you don't want him coming to your place. So we met out in a public place at this really nice wine bar. And he's ordering this and ordering that. And it's adding up to a lot of money, I'm sure. And then he says, what about dinner? Because we were having fun, laughing, joking, whatever. And he said, are you hungry? Let's go have dinner. So we went to the most expensive place in town. And he bought like the appetizer was $75, a seafood appetizer. Yeah. So this guy dropped, I don't know, $400 easy, $400 or $500 that night. And so he was expecting a little something when the date was over. And I'm like, no, we just met and whatever, it was awkward. And so the next day I got a text from him and he said, hey, just so you know, I had the greatest time. You're the greatest, but you're never going to hear from me again because all I'm looking for is a physical relationship. I'm like, oh my word. Well, I'm not. And so, good luck to you. But, and I said to him, I said, well, if all you're looking for is a physical relationship, you could have saved a whole lot of money going down to our red light district. Like, and which I thought was funny. He didn't think that was funny at all. But anyway, he called me a couple of days later. Well, if you ever have a change of heart, and I'm like, I won't. So just check me off the list because I'm not going to have a change of heart. I don't want just a physical relationship. I mean, yeah, that just makes no sense to me. But anyway, yes. So that was a fun date. But so any dating stories, and we have a remarried. So that's a story all by itself too. So who wants to share?
Well, you mentioned Match.com, so I'm going to jump into that one because I tried Match.com and there were a couple really weird guys and then the weird stories and someone's looking over somebody. This is a warning to anybody who's on Match.com as a new widow, because there are going to be people who say, I'm looking over my cousin's shoulder. My brother's looking over my shoulder. He doesn't want to be a member. Give us your email. Send us your phone number. Do not do that. Stupid. And you hear it so many times that you finally get the gist, but no. However, I met a guy on Match.com that I decided, well, okay, I'll give it a try. We met for wine in my favorite restaurant. He told me that he had to go in 45 minutes because he had dinner plans at a friend's house. They'd just come back from a trip and they were going to share some pictures and stories. So he already had an exit plan. He'd been down this road many times before. I went out with him a second time and a third time. I continued to tease him about the fact he didn't walk me to my car, which was not a impressive point. And he said, well, I figured you were an adult. You could manage it yourself. I was giving you that kind of credit. However, as I said, he'd been down the road before. Match.com keeps sending you little teasers. He liked my smile. He wanted to know if, he wanted a response. If he was going to reach out, he wanted a response. So he paid $39.95 to rejoin Match.com just so he could get a response from me. So I'm the best $39.95 investment he ever made. We've been together for over 6 years.
Wow.
But we're not marrying and we're not living together.
Does he walk you to the car now? Because there's something about that, Karen. You should be walking into the car.
He continues to open the door for me every time we go out.
Good.
So, yeah.
Because we're still women, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
Yeah. We want to be treated like women. And so,
Actually, we were doing something this weekend with some friends. I was hosting a fundraiser for an organization we belong to. And I was parked in a place that I didn't have my parking tag with me to pay for before I went back to my car. So I went down, everybody else was in another car because they were in a hurry to get back for, I don't remember what reason. So I walked to the car, I paid for my ticket, walked to my car by myself, and one of the women in the car with him said, why didn't you wait to have her get back to the car? Why didn't you walk her to the car? Why didn't, aren't you afraid somebody might have cost her? How will you feel? And he said, I had to tell him the story about never walking you to the car on our first 3 dates.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, congratulations. Sounds like you found a great guy. So that's
did.
good. And Karen, you found a great guy.
I did, and got remarried. So
Yeah.
after Sam died, I started dating about a year later, which, you know, my initial reaction was that everybody was going to be like, oh, how could she date this quickly? Didn't she love Sam? But at the end of the day, everybody was thrilled. And they said it helped them see that I was moving on because, yeah, and I really don't like that phrase, moving on. I was, like, Sam was never coming back, right? And I loved being married. I love having the companionship. Again, I was 47 at the time, so Bob and I started dating. He's a freebie. Him and I both were on Plenty of Fish, which was free. And the story with us is that we were like, I had to have a picture in order for him to contact me, and his picture had been for some reason taken down. So he took his camera he had, seen me online, but he took a camera into work and had his friend take a picture so he could post it and meet me. So
Oh, that's special.
yeah. So anyway, that was, we dated for about a year. We got married. I kind of was and still am in the mindset of life is short, why wait? So we got married a year later. My girls were in college at the time when my one graduated literally a few weeks after Sam died, and my other two were freshmen at the time. So they were still in college. My dad had passed away literally 6 months before Sam did. So that was a very, very tough year. My mom is now 86. She can run circles around just about any of us. It's kind of crazy, but I love it. She's chosen to not, like most of her friends that have lost their husbands have dated or have a gentleman friend or whatever. And my mom's like, nope, I like my freedom. I like my independence and I'm on my own, and good for her. I loved being married, and I loved spending time with Bob. And in fact, right now we're up, that's why I'm in a library. We're up in the Adirondacks camping. We love to go around the US and camp and everything. And I've got, 2 additional kids and 7 grandkids through Bob, and life is grand and I love it. So,
So cool. Great story. That's a great story. It's nice when it goes well.
yes.
Like
Yes.
Karen was saying before you, how don't give away your email, don't whatever, because there are a whole lot of fake people out there.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta really be discerning and figure out who's fake, who's real. Oh my gosh, there's so much to it. And it's just, I think the older I get, the tougher it is. Or I don't even know. But anyway, Rebecca, what about you?
Well, my story is kind of like in reverse in that I had been married and divorced before. And then Frank and I got married 6 years after 6 years after both of our divorces. And so we were together like 25 and a half years. And I really have no desire to expend the energy or the time or the effort to engage with someone else, because I know how much energy that takes from me. And as a lot of our widows that we interviewed said that they were not interested in having another partner because they didn't want to be a nurse or a purse. And I feel the same. I've been a nurse, don't need to do it again, don't want to be your purse. And I have my space and I like it, I mean, it sounds silly, but in my master bathroom, I have those 2 sinks, and one sink is where I put on my makeup and the other sink is where I brush my teeth. And there's no reason to have anybody else at my sinks.
You'd have to give one up, and then where are you
Yeah,
gonna brush
right.
your teeth? You're gonna have to go to the kitchen or something. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
not gonna work.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. No, I just, I'm happy with myself. I'm happy where I'm where I'm at in life. and happy with what I can do. And in one regard, I'm kind of like Karen's mom, where, hey, I'm independent, I can do what I want, and I'm happy. So.
Yeah. It's interesting. And, for some reason, I know a lot of fantastic single women our age,
Mhm.
but I don't know any fantastic single men. And so people will say, well, why aren't you dating? Why haven't you found somebody? Why are you? And I'm like, do you know anybody? Do you know a good man my age who's single? And they go, no. And I'm
Yeah.
like, because they don't exist. My theory is there's three good men that are
Mhm.
single right now. One lives in France, one in Australia, the other one's in Antarctica. Chances of me meeting any of them are slim to none. So it's good to just stay out, I guess, of the game.
Now,
But
if you were me, you'd be traveling to those places to go find them, Kim.
yes,
True.
Not
yes,
so much for the manhunt as for the travel.
that's right. Well, for the travel, I do it in a heartbeat. And
Yeah.
those are, big countries, big areas. So you'd still have to run into them. So I would go
Yeah.
for the travel for sure. But yeah, it's so funny. So we've talked about some advice that can be given, like for people who you always hear people say, I don't know what to say. And you go to the funeral home, you go to the funeral, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And I love the advice of just say, I'm thinking about you. Or, all you have to say is, I'm sorry. You don't have to say he's in a better place, because right now we don't care.
Mhm.
No,
We
when
don't.
we're there, we could care less if he's in another. Okay, yes, probably, hopefully he's in a better place, but
We want
he
them
left.
here.
He's
We
not
want 'em
here.
here, yeah.
Exactly.
One of the widows we interviewed said, "I don't care if God wanted him with him. I want him here with me." And she, that was just definitely not something to say to her in the
Mhm.
receiving line.
Yeah, no kidding.
Made her
I'm
angry.
funny how different things will hit different people different ways, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, or the whole, well, it must have been his time, well,
Oh,
no.
no.
I mean, I don't believe that either. Like I believe in God, but I don't believe he's a puppet master that's like organizing every day, every step we take or whatever. And I think time is a weird thing. So I believe God knows when we're going to die, but that doesn't mean that that's the day
He
he wants us
orchestrates
to
it.
die, that
Yeah.
he's worked it out that way.
Yeah.
But just because time is, in its own realm, outside of here, and hard for me to understand. But no, I just don't believe in that it's his time. I just don't believe in that. And so that's that was a tough one for me to hear. I was like, yeah, I'm not really buying that one, but
Mhm.
whatever you
Or-
want to say.
Everything happens for a reason. No, there was no
Oh,
reason
yeah.
for him to
Oh,
die.
yeah. No.
Right.
No
Yeah.
reason
Yeah.
for him to die.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. I think rather than everything happens for a reason, everything that happens, you can make something good come out of it.
Mhm.
Like,
Absolutely.
here you guys are working together, came up with this great book that is going to be so helpful to so many people. And you wouldn't have done this had you not lost your husband.
True.
But probably if you had a choice, you wouldn't have lost your husbands.
Right.
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 Yeah.
And so one of the things, and I actually said this in the book too, one of the most powerful quotes that after Sam died, I kept repeating to myself, it is what it is. It is what it is. I couldn't change it. It is what it is. You just got to keep moving forward, right? And then I learned that there's actually a second part of that quote, and it says, but it will be what you make of it. And at the time I heard that, I couldn't add the second part. It is what it is time frame. But I knew instinctively that once I could add that second part, that I would have turned a corner. And that's exactly what happened. Because then I was able to say, but it will be what you make of it. What do I want to do now? Right.
Mhm.
And how do I want to handle this that I didn't want to have happen, but it did. So now what do I do with it? Right. And I think that, again, going back to our book, it's our journey, and it's any woman's journey. It's not
Mhm.
just widowhood. It's any woman's journey of life.
Mhm.
And it talks about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I mean, to me personally, I'm not trying to, but it's inspirational because of, and I'm saying that like, and I learned so much about Karen and Rebecca, and I love them and working together because of what we pulled out of each other as well to write the book. Like there was more than one occasion where we would be like, you have to go deeper. You have to, that's not emotional enough. You have to really pull those feelings out. And Rebecca and I are like, no.
I was too.
Surface stuff. Yes,
I was too, you know, as outgoing as I am, you guys made me pull out things I had suppressed or didn't want to talk about or wasn't sure I was even willing to share. I mean, they're pushy women.
But how cleansing that was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and all these years later, there are still tears, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. But it was cleansing to get that story out there. And that's one of the other things too. And one of our chapters is called Mamas Teach Your Children, Your Daughters to Be Widows. And it's about being prepared for widowhood. And part of it is about the fact that nobody talks about it, right? Like it's this subject that nobody wants to talk about because they don't want it to happen to them. And so we keep it under the covers and so that it doesn't, whereas it should be talked about because it's a life-changing event. Nobody wants it to happen, but it's a good possibility it's going to happen to you as a woman. And let's talk about it. And so that you know that when it happens, yeah, it's going to suck, but it's going to ultimately be okay. It's just the journey to getting there.
Well,
so thank you, Kim. Yeah, I mean, Kim's doing it today, hosting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and to add to what Karen was saying about mamas teach your daughters to be widows is that a lot of the women that we interviewed had mothers and grandmothers who had been widows for 20, 40 years, and no one had they never shared the information with their daughters. And one of the things that we also saw was how unprepared so many women were when the event happened. And that can have some devastating consequences, like a 35-year-old mother with 3 kids. She lost her income when her husband died. She lost her healthcare insurance. She had nothing. She had nothing. And, you know, we can't, if we have the information that can help them get through that, we can't sit on our hands and hold that back. And, you know, we can present it to them and say, listen, it's like Karen said, it's going to be a sucky ride, but we can make it less sucky with these particular things, you know, to help you get
I
through
love
it.
that. That's so true. You know, I met with a pastor at the church I was going to at the time because right after my husband died, because I asked if there was anything for widows in the church. And he said, well, let's meet for coffee. So I met for coffee. And I said, so, you know, do you have anything? He said, no. And I said, well, I'd be happy to start something, you know, so we can get together because you know what it's like when you get together, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And he said, no, no way, no way. It'll just become a hookup thing.
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
gosh.
a hookup. At first, I didn't even know what hookup meant. That's how naive. And I'm like, a hookup. And then he explained it. And I said, well, okay. So when women lose their husbands, they don't turn into a lesbian. And I said widows, not widows and widowers. So I don't think anybody's going to be hooking up. You know, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And I said, we're a people group in the Bible, widows and orphans, take care of widows and orphans. And what you said about the woman who loses everything, it's so true. And, you know, and I said, gosh, there's men that probably want to help with things like fix a car, or the things that my husband used to do, right? That I begrudged like crazy. I don't know if you guys did, but man, I didn't take out the trash, I think, for weeks because that was his job. And why do I have to take out the trash? It just kind of made me mad for a silly reason. But, and he said, no, we could never do that because then something could happen with them. And I said, well, let the wife come too then and have tea. I mean, it was so silly, the whole thing. And it's just like, well, I don't know what the perception is, but man, there should be help for people. And I said, you know, so the church has no help at all for widows. Like you guys don't do anything. Nope. And I said, well, often the woman stays home, takes care of the kids, puts her career on hold. Often that happens, right? And so the husband is the main breadwinner. Well, now you don't have his income. And so what is she going to do for a job? His response was, well, she can waitress. I said, oh, that's
my
nice. She
gosh.
can waitress. And she'll, match that 140 grand that her husband was bringing in somehow, right?
In tips, yeah.
Yeah, you got to be doing a little something extra, waitressing, if you're going to come home with tips like that. And so then what? So then she's going to waitress at night, because that's the money, right? Dinner.
Mhm.
So they lose their dad. Now they lose their mom because she has to work nights. And then they might lose all their friends because they might have to move out of the house that they're in, move
Right.
into a different
Right.
house, right? Yeah. Yeah. There needs to be more help.
Rebecca, you started to say something.
Oh, well, I was just going to give a little side note about our title, Widows Among Us, as Kim was talking about in her conversations with her pastor, because Widows Among Us is what we chose from Deuteronomy, where they
I love
talk
it.
about how to
Yeah.
take care of the
Care of
widows,
the widows
among
among
us.
us, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But go ahead, Karen.
There are two things I wanted to add to what you said, Kim, is when we were interviewing other widows, Rebecca and I were traveling in Italy, and there happened to be, in our group of seven, there happened to be 4 other widows.
Mhm.
And so we sat down one evening right before we went out for dinner and talked with them. And when we finished talking, we all, everybody started to leave to join the group. And one woman stopped in tears and said, "Thank you. I was widowed 20 years ago, and no one has ever asked me how I felt or how it felt to be a widow." So it's not only mamas teach your daughters to be widows, but it's also back to asking, how you can help a widow, what words to say. How are you feeling? What do you want to share with me what you're experiencing? She may want to talk. She may want to be asked just that question. And in another part of our book, the last section, we talk about how to help and support a widow. Suggestions on just what we've been talking about, questions to ask and things to do and not do, including, I call it because I was referring to Karen's husband. She doesn't know this at all, but I was the beer and batteries thing. Bob loves beer, and he came over to help me with one project, and I was talking about the CO2 and the smoke alarm batteries. I have a ladder that won't reach that. I don't reach more than 5 feet. I can't reach them. So I was going to invite him over for a beer if he checked the batteries, So so we have this thing about beer and batteries is one way that you can help a widow.
I love what you guys have done. I mean, I love that you wrote this book. I love that you took the time for it. Everything in it. I love talking. Moms, talk to your girls. I mean, I think that all of that is so important. And we also like to talk about the people that we love, right?
Yes.
And so people can be so afraid to ask because it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to upset her. So I'm not going to mention his name, like he who shall not be mentioned, I'm Harry Potter, whatever. But I love it when people say to me,
Yeah.
"Hey, what's your favorite memory of Steve?" Or, whatever. Or Steve comes up in conversation. I love it. Or they tell me a story about him. That's also a really, really nice thing to do.
Yes.
So
Right.
yeah. We're and we don't have leprosy. And so people can approach us.
Widowhood is not contagious.
No, it's not contagious. And yes, what a relief that is. It's not contagious. So you can be around us and even share our spoon, I guess, if you need to, because you're not going to catch anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole different life. So what you guys have done, I love it that you did it because it's so needed. It is just so needed, and it can be lonely. And I think the Surgeon General recently said that 50% of the people in the U.S. deal with extreme loneliness. And that's a lot.
Sad.
That's a lot.
That's sad.
Yeah. So if there's things that you can do to help people to not be lonely, and things you can do for yourself as well, right? To not be lonely. And then those are good things. If you were to say the perfect person to buy this book, which there's several perfect people, everybody should buy the book, or the person that within the book, there's a gem that's so good that this is the person that needs to hear it, what's the gem and who's the person?
Well, we have a joke, but it's not a joke. I mean, in reality, we joke about that the book should be given as a wedding present because to help that new bride, maybe a week or two later,
Maybe first anniversary. No, I mean,
Yeah, there you
seriously,
go.
things happen.
yeah, things happen.
Mhm.
Things happen, and you need to take care of yourself and be prepared. And that comes, with mamas, teach your daughters to be widows. Yeah.
I think, Kim, as much as we want to reassure widows that what they're experiencing is their unique experience and it's okay, and that there will be a way forward, that they'll be able to find it. But I think most of all, for me, the person I want to read this book is the woman who's not yet widowed.
Mhm.
I want her to be prepared so she doesn't get have the floor drop out from under her and be dealing with a gazillion problems in addition to her grief.
Right.
And then also if she reads the whole book, not just the part about being being prepared, then when she is widowed, she will understand that what she's experiencing is her own unique experience, but there are similarities in every loss.
Mm.
So I think the perfect person to read the book is a married woman who is married for at least a month.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
the 1 month anniversary, because we all
Yeah.
send those gifts, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Mark,
right.
That's a big
I mean,
one.
when you have anything that's jointly owned,
Mhm.
especially if there are children involved, it's
Mhm.
just one problem just starts exacerbating on top of the other.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Karen, you have anything to add to that with gems in the book?
Really, I mean, absolutely women, period.
Mhm.
Widowhood status is optional, right? One thing we have discovered, it's probably not going to be read by a new widow. She's dealing with too many things. It doesn't necessarily need to or want to hear the story of somebody else's. That's not entirely true, but right after you're widowed, you probably don't have the bandwidth to read
Mhm.
this.
But I would like to see her skip our 3 stories and start in the middle. I would like
In
to
the
see a new
middle
widow
where
start
we-
in the middle. Yeah.
Yes, and there is a section in the book that addresses specifically the new widow.
Mhm.
Okay. There is a section in there, absolutely. So she would benefit from that. But I'm with Karen. I would like women to read it because at the end of the day, and I kind of said this before, but it's about a woman's journey.
It is.
It just
Mhm.
happens to be precipitated by the fact that we were all widowed and that's our story. But it's still our journey of life is good, life is not good, but I'm a different person and I'm okay. And I love, and I've said this before, I love my life. I love the life I'm living right now with Bob.
Mhm.
But if Sam hadn't died, it'd be a different life. And I'd
Mhm.
still love that life too. Like,
Right.
I know I would.
But you don't have a choice. There's
But I
no,
don't
Yeah.
have a choice, and I
Right.
love the life I'm living now. I love who I am and what I'm doing, and it's great. It sucks that I had to go through a widowhood to get here, but I did. And every woman has that ability to create the life that she wants, whatever that might mean. And that's really at the heart of our story, is that you
Mhm.
have the opportunity to create that life.
Amen. I love that. I love that. Okay, so we're out of time. And I am so happy because this isn't the last time I'll see you guys because now we're best friends. We're going to be traveling together. We're going to be having a blast. I like it. It's going to be so great. Karen, you and I, we can chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can put
Yeah.
in their earplugs if they want to, whatever. And so I'm happy for that. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to write this book. Thank you so much for getting it out there. And I agree, like I probably wouldn't have been open to anything in the first month of
Mhm.
losing my husband, 6 weeks. I don't know how long, whatever that number is. But then after that, if somebody would have given me a book
Mhm.
called
Mhm.
Widows Among Us, I would have devoured it. So
Mhm.
I think there's that
Yeah.
that time, right? And then,
Mhm.
so it would be a great gift
Mhm.
for widows, and probably no matter how long someone's been widowed,
Mhm.
True.
right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so the
Absolutely.
before and the after. So Widows Among Us comes out on October,
Middle
Yeah.
October. Middle of
middle
October.
October.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Middle of October. So you might be
Web-
watching this anytime. So just go look it up because it might be out when you're watching it. If not, then just put it on your calendar to go and buy and think
They
think
could
about people
pre-order.
in your life. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah,
And think
our-
about people in your
our-
life that need it.
Our website is 3widows.com, and 3 is spelled out THREE, widows.com. So you can go there, you can join our newsletter, you can pre-order the book, find out more about us and connect with us, because we'd love to hear from our audience and really grow that community. So
Oh, excellent. Excellent. You guys, you're so good. This was so
Thank you.
fun.
This is
So-
great.
it was fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And until we meet again, be blessed.